Yeah, so I think I already alluded to a bit of this, basically just a bit about our real property portfolio. 300 plus properties, 22,000 buildings, and I guess what's key here is really the supporting infrastructure for that. As I mentioned, we have one of pretty much everything. We own most of our infrastructure, but we do have a very high reliance on industry, basically for delivering major capital projects and for doing work, and also a lot of our operations and maintenance. We do have a kind of real property operations group that runs our infrastructure, but there is a lot of facility, managed contracts as well. Um, I guess the first thing I should really uh, mention is that I probably shouldn't be doing this particular talk. When John first approached me, I figured it was really our civil engineers who would probably be the best ones to talk a bit about kind of some what we're doing, some of the data collection activities that we're doing here. But between vacation, maternity leave, and maybe just shyness, they none of our civil engineers were here. So I'm basically, I wanted to talk a bit about some of the work we're doing, and my own perspective is more from the data side. So I'm going to be talking more on data. So, and in terms of data, we do have a fragmented portfolio. We're getting better at it, but I think one of the big things is that prior to 2016, the infrastructure in D&D was basically owned by 9 different organizations. So you have you've heard the expression, there's the right way, the wrong way, the army way, but there's also an Air Force way, a Navy way, the chief of military personnel way, etc. So that is very difficult to manage, unsustainable. So 2016, that all changed into one organization now. Things working much better. Having said that, when you take all that data and put it together, it does give you a kind of fragmented picture. We're still working through some of that. So I'm just going to talk a bit about part of one of the centralization efforts we were doing was to really build the real property spatial data warehouse, which is basically a repository of engineering and spatial information. Kind of came about that 2016 time frame, where we had some working with industry, some consulting groups that looked at where we could integrate spatial data with our business information and what kind of use cases we could support. And that's really, I'm listing a few of these here, and certainly linear assets touch on quite a few of these: the portfolio planning, the condition, um, the project delivery. Um, so certainly lot of work that we're doing right now. And one of the key things that we wanted to do was to really build the information. We kind of took the view that we didn't have good data, so we really needed to look at what we had, identify the gaps, and really kind of develop, what is the standardized approach we need. And so we kind of had a land program where we're looking at the ownership and the property boundaries and all the transactions that have come up to determine the actual owned footprint that we have. There's the site infrastructure side of things, which is kind of a bit more where I sit. Once you have the boundaries and you're looking at the infrastructure that's there. And then we also have a lot of building information. We've got 22,000 buildings, about half of which are operational, the other half being quarters, residential quarters. But a lot of information there that has to be managed, getting standardized floor plans to be able to support space management, that kind of thing. So basically, question of getting all the data kind of centralized and built. So linear assets, obviously a big part of that, and very topical, obviously, with what's happening in Calgary. That's kind of where I pinched the picture there. D&D, I don't think we have any pipes quite that size, but certainly the situation they're dealing with in Calgary is something we're very aware of. So we do have breaks, um, every so often. Aging infrastructure is affecting us all. Um, Out of sight, out of mind too. So one of the challenges we had is that our kind of systems of record that everyone consults for all the reports and for looking at the condition of our portfolio are generally transactional in their business systems, and they're not engineering. So we had an audit back in 2017. It was an internal audit by Chief of View Services, and they checked our DRIMIS SAP system for uh, basically engineering linear asset information, and they wanted to do audits. So if you had, let's say you had a work order that where a parking lot had been paved, they wanted proof that that had happened. Where did this actually happen? And of course, that's business system can't really tell you that. So we didn't do too well on that, and was really a management action plan to really kind of do and manage our linear assets in a much better way, really to centralize the spatial data and get some tools that would actually be able to serve it up. And so quite a bit of work that we've been doing for this. So we really had to identify data, come up with various schemas and standards, and then really do that data build. And I think we kind of annoyed some people because we did take the attitude that we don't have data, and we need to centralize it. And sometimes at our establishments, we'd be told, we've got great data. It's on a file on a share that a couple of people know about. It's in a AutoCAD 2005 format or whatever. But there's data there, but it's not really an enterprise asset. So that's really kind of what we're looking at doing. Data for linear assets, typically it's generally we get a lot of that information coming through projects, and we also put together a source list where we could actually go and do some data collections. So I'm just going to talk a bit about this. This is kind of something that we set up kind of it was pre-COVID, 2018, 2019, I think is when this really got through. And Defense Construction Canada is the contracting authority for national defense. So they're really running these kind of source lists. And the idea is really to get companies that can be pre-qualified to deliver services. And so we kind of went through that, got a number of companies that were identified. And the kind of projects that we're doing are really three phases. Phase one is typically, gathering existing data, working with the various real property operations group detachments and kind of doing standardization, collecting it's not just spatial data. There's a lot of reports and pictures and other information that we need to do that build. Phase two was a bit more field work. I guess this is where you're really doing your gap analysis and you're really trying to plug the gaps. And then phase three is where you really start doing condition assessments and doing inspections as well. And in some cases, that third phase, we kind of wonder if we even need it. We have in some cases we know we have a problem, with aging infrastructure. If you got pipes that are 80 years old, do you need to do more condition inspections? You got a problem. You gotta deal with that too. So we did some collections for Winnipeg, Greenwood, Edmonton, and Petawawa, and then we're also using the source list for major capital projects at a number of locations. So I'm just going to run through some of these results. I think this is from Winnipeg, and we kind of looked at just some of the the water mains, and our engineers kind of came up with the 80 years is really the kind of lifespan for this kind of infrastructure, and we just kind of looked at where we fall on that. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of red. We're kind of finding, if you've got infrastructure that's 80 years old, well, a lot of our sites came about to as a result of our entry to the Second World War, which was just over 80 years ago. So a lot of the original infrastructure is really kind of hitting its critical peaks now. So that's certainly something we need to deal with, and that's really where having, I think, the civil engineers would help you maybe on the bigger picture how we're going to deal with this. But this is the water main conditions. Similar situation for the sewers, and there you're right into there's a lot of red there. We've got a lot of aging infrastructure. Winnipeg is probably typical of a few of our Second World War era sites. And then something similar for the storm sewers, and again a lot of red. So not all of our sites are like this. We were looking at Edmonton, which has had a lot of there's been a lot of capital projects there, and a lot of infrastructure being rebuilt, and it's not quite as dire, I guess. So one thing I'm going to do here, I showed you the previous maps I showed you were just from desktop GIS. And so we have the data that's collected. You can pull it into a desktop system, and you can do lots of really interesting analysis. We also have a map viewer where we do have it's not quite as functional, obviously, as a desktop, but we do have the ability to show some of our linear assets. So I'm going to see if I can do a live demo. This our system, our advanced wide area network won't accept Zoom. We're not allowed to use that, but we can use Teams. So I'm kind of joining a team session on my personal computer, and I'm connecting to my work computer. So anyway, don't try this at home. I don't know if Teams and Zoom always play together well, but anyway, this is just I just wanted to show you a bit about some of the live views. This is Greenwood. Just going to put on a aerial image in the background. This isn't our production. This is our one of our development environments, but we actually have some of the data that's been collected for Greenwood. And Greenwood is a site that really came about in the 1940s. So we've again a lot of aging infrastructure there. So this is really a planning tool. This is our real property map viewer. So basically, it uses Esri technology to serve up geospatial information. So we've got some of our core buildings that are in here. It's linked to our SAP business systems, and we kind of add more and more information as we're going through. So we do have some of the linear assets. That Greenwood was one of the sites where we did some data collection, and so this is really meant to really for a broader user base, just to see what's there. So you can actually go and click on a few of these for more information. So I just clicked on one of our mains there, which happens to be asbestos cement. So collecting this information is very useful for things like ministerial inquiries too. Sometimes we'll get questions like how much asbestos cement, what's the length of asbestos cement piping that D&D has, and we certainly for the sites where we've done this kind of assessment, we can go and get all these results. So this is basically. I think between the desktop and the map view, we still have another need for an engineering tool. Is with the map viewer, you're working in an overall projection web Mercator. You can't do any kind of real measurements from that. So we do have a need for something kind of going beyond the desktop, where we don't have to have the engineers using ArcGIS, where they can use a more friendly tool that will work to support that engineering view. So I'm just going to go back to my presentation. And I'm just going to start wrapping up just with some of the lessons we learned. And then I've got a few slides on more on some of the GeoBIM data that and some of the things we're working on, because I think they are quite relevant to linear asset management. So I think one of the key lessons we learned is that we've got a lot of data to manage. So a lot of our spatial data, this is structured data, but we have a lot of unstructured data, engineering documents, pictures, videos that have to be managed, and that's quite a challenge. And we're working with on the pilot for this. CP Halifax, they reckon they got about 700,000 documents that they have to manage. And many of those are related to linear assets. So we we can't do this in Teams or SharePoint. We need a proper document management system that we can link in. So we're kind of working on dealing with that. We're relaunching our source lists. I think the first go around, it wasn't quite as flexible as we thought. So we're seeing what we can do contracting wise to speed that up. And I think we also needed to work a bit on the information handovers, how the data flows from the vendor into the core systems. Um, the information exchanges, I think, are key there. And there's ISO standards like 19650 that I think can help us on that. Um, we've we also need to be able to visualize kind of where breaks are happening. These things are we need a structured approach to this. A lot of this as breaks happen, they may be tracked locally, but we do need to be able to have a way forward on a standard way forward to be able to track this, because we do analysis on this kind of thing. We noted one of our bases out west where we've had a series of breaks on infrastructure that is not very old, and so that's certainly something that needs to be looked at. There may be something else happening there. Uh, I think I guess key takeaway here is that we also aging infrastructure is probably the biggest challenge we're facing here. Um, Not just for D&D, Canadian society in general will deal with this. So, one last thing, I've got a few more slides where I just want to talk a bit about going beyond linear assets and underground utilities. It's basically the need to develop an integrated digital built environment. Uh, we have so many silos of data, and we need to be able to be agile and to move core standardized data around from projects to operations to support all kinds of operations, and the data really has to flow. And we need this integrated digital built environment to be able to do this. We need open standards to be able to do that. BIM and GIS interoperability, I think, is key to this. And we sometimes think of BIM as being just buildings and just being projects, but it's actually a lot more than that. It really is the full asset management throughout the life cycle, and it's dealing with a lot of civil works as well. So it's certainly something that we need to be able to aware of. So we need to be able to look at how do we bring all these environments together. Things like industry foundation classes, that's core to BIM, city GML. There's land infra. What kind of standards do we need to be able to have talking to each other? And how do we define all those information flows? So I mentioned ISO 19650. I won't spend too much time on this, but it's really a way forward, provides guidance on the information handovers throughout asset lifecycle. And again, not just buildings, it's for all kinds of civil works as well. And really defines, where information handovers happen, basic processes, and best practices. So this particular diagram, we've been showing this to a number of venues where we present. Kind of, it's been called the lobster diagram. I guess it looks a bit like a lobster, but this was kind of a sketch of when we looked at what would implementation of ISO 19650 look like at D&D. Basically going from our common data environments to support projects, some of the handovers into our cloud platform, how you define the project information models, how you define the asset exchange asset information models in the Exchange platforms, how we manage all this data in our geospatial data lake, and then in turn, how we provide services from this to support all kinds of use cases. So, and I guess one of the key things, we can't really do this alone. So we are working with industry and academia to be able to go through this and define these outcomes. And one of the big ones for us is the National Council on Digitalization of Canada's Built Environment. I think we can kind of think of it as the Coalition of the Willing, where we have a number of interested groups that are really working together to be able to look at these issues. Let's work through a number of projects that are kind of being worked on in the IDBE framework and a digital twin roadmap. I think the last thing, I realize I'm coming up on time here, so the last thing I just want to draw people's attention to is the MUDI standard, which is being developed by the Open Geospatial Consortium, the OGC. And I think this is certainly going to play a big role going forward in linear asset management. It's basically the underground data definition and integration standard. It's basically a framework to make data sets more easy to manage and exchange. When you talk to the OGC, one of the core concepts they are promoting is fair data, which is findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And MUDI is certainly a way forward to be able to make our underground infrastructure fair. As a couple of reference implementations that have been done, it's been built more as a conceptual model, and we're now at the point where it's to build it further and into something a bit more into a proper logic model. I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say, just to give everyone just a quick rundown of some of the work we're doing at National Defense and some of the key data initiatives that we're doing. So, I guess I can stop sharing. Oh, thanks.
Thanks, Paul. That was great.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got a little
Thanks,
bit of
Jonathan.
time for Q&A. Do you have a couple minutes for some questions?
Yeah, sure.
I actually wanted to congratulate you on figuring out how to get Zoom and Teams to work together. I've never seen that before in an online presentation.
I
Might
was,
have to
yeah, I
ask
wasn't
for
sure.
notes. Yeah, that worked very well.
Yeah,
I didn't
we're kind of
see
lucky in
any
that
problems there.
yeah, we can invite if you're doing work with the Department of National Defense. Teams is what we work in, but we can invite people into our Teams environment from the outside, or we can join, and then we have some flexibility. But yeah, so just joining from my personal laptop here. Yeah, it worked better than I thought, actually.
So I noticed that until the very end of your presentation, I didn't hear you say anything about digital twins. What's the state of thinking around digital twins with your team? Do you see it as something you're going to be jumping into in a big way, or have you already started?
That's a really good question. I think one of the things that comes up every so often is what is even the definition of a digital twin. So we're really we see it really as being the actual the digital model of the infrastructure, and it's also tied into real world inputs. So we're kind of I think we're building the foundations. I think the IDBE framework that we're talking about, I think, is going to be the foundation for the digital twin. We're getting the data aligned and built and sorted out to do that. And as we do that, we are starting to we're talking to various groups within national defense for all kinds of different use cases where this data can be used to support kind of real-time analysis. We're building automation systems. That's one thing. The metering. There's all kinds of other things that we're looking at where we can pull this information in. So most of what we've been looking at so far is more buildings, and it's really just question how do we how do we build that digital twin of the infrastructure? And I think we're from the data side of things, we're putting the foundations in place. So once we have that, then we can start operationalizing it and using it to support a digital twin.
Right. There's a question from the audience from Steve. Paul, is CSA S250 20 mapping standard in play for your data collection?
I believe we do reference it. Yeah, that's
Okay.
it's something that we are tracking. We do sit in that committee, and we do reference that standard in a number of places.
I'm curious, what's the tech stack like? I saw a few things in your presentation. Do you basically stick with all the major software like the Esri suite and things like that, or do you use anything interesting that we might not have be thinking about?
That's a good question. I mean, yeah, we use a lot of Esri software, obviously for mapping, a lot of Autodesk tools as well, sort of AutoCAD, but also Civil and Map 3D. And we're also kind of using a bit more. We're kind of looking at BricsCAD as well, which I believe is a Hexagon product, kind of as a supplement, as a CAD tool and BIM. So those are some of the core tools that we're using, but there's all kinds of other tools like Red Screen, which is an NRCan product for energy analysis. Um, I'm Yeah, there's quite a few
Any
different
open
tech. Yeah.
source?
Open source is an interesting challenge for yeah, we have an older version of Quantum Gist that we have on the network, which got put through a few years ago, and it's something we need to look at as another tool to use. There are challenges with open source, often more in the support side. I know there is direction from Treasury Board to consider open source, but unfortunately, often when it comes to actually deployment, the lack of a support contract is often something that's brought up. Who if there's a security threat, who do we call? Where do we get the patch from? Who do we worst case scenario, who do we sue? Not that I think we've ever sued anyone successfully on this, but that's what is brought up as a problem for open source. So, and again, those aren't insurmountable, but it does it does require a lot of effort to move these things along. But it's something we would certainly consider.
Great. Okay, last question from the audience, from David. Are you using FME as an ETL tool?
Yeah, great question. Yes, we are. We have FME is deployed. We've got a couple of it's deployed on the desktop at quite a few of our real property operations groups, and we're also looking at how we can leverage it kind of on the server. So there is we do a lot of. I didn't really talk too much about the technology breakdown, but we have most of our data is in the intelligence command infrastructure in the mapping and charting establishment. And so we have servers set up there. So we're looking at deploying a FME server, leveraging some of the work they're doing to be able to reuse workflows and things like that. We're also looking to move to the defense cloud. In fact, just the past couple of days, we finally got a bit of movement on that. We were kind of stuck for a while, but we're looking to deploy some of our Archibus space management technology into the cloud to be able to support the return to the office. And certainly, we would look at how we could move FME server there. And I understand, yeah, there's still some challenges there. So.
Okay, great.
Yeah, a lot, certainly a lot happening, but yeah, we're big users of FME, and I think we'll probably be doing a lot more of it as well.